are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 260 of the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan Larck, A-Boy-Tech on Twitter, here to talk to you about yesterday's Deep South's oldest rivalry as the Auburn Tigers fell to Georgia yet again in Athens, 31-13. Now, this is a game I was not expecting Auburn to win. I don't think very many people who were in their right mind expected Auburn to come out of this game with a win. And I was able to watch something beautiful happen yesterday. I'm representing Vanderbilt because I think they deserve it. They beat Alabama last night. Arkansas also beat Tennessee. And I see Tim Tomei Taylor, what's up? And what's up, Chris Causey as well. Getting into this, something is systematically wrong with Auburn. Vanderbilt was able, in Nashville, I don't say that like it's home field advantage or anything, Vanderbilt was able to overpower Alabama last night. Vanderbilt overpowered Alabama. Alabama did not force anyone to punt the ball. Vanderbilt went the entire game without a 3-and-out. They held the ball for 42 minutes of the game. Okay? We watched Clark Lee of Vanderbilt out-coach Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Also last night, Arkansas hosted Tennessee, number 4 team in the country, and held that offense to only 300 yards. Outgained Tennessee by 100 yards. Stormed the field, were able to throw their goalposts in the river as well. We watched Sam Pittman out-coach Josh Heupel. Yesterday, Auburn played against Georgia. And yes, they didn't get to host Georgia like the other two teams did, but they did things correctly in a way where they were moving the football. But the issue is Auburn cannot get out of their own way. And again, not expecting Auburn to win this game. Not expecting it whatsoever. But they had every opportunity to do so. Points left off the board. You go for a 54-yard field goal to end the half where I think you could have just tried to just throw a bomb there at the end and try to get back within, just 4 points of the game. So many things could have gone differently in this game. And I don't think it's on the players anymore. The talent, I want to say, we have seen enough film where I don't think it's a talent issue right now. It's an execution issue and a play calling issue. Yesterday, the biggest controversial play of yesterday's game was the 4th-and-1 halfback dive read option audible play that happened, and there's probably never going to be a chance where we actually know what play was called for that one. Hugh Freeze said it was a dive. Thorne, I guess, thought it was an RPO, and one thing led to another. It was the wrong read, and the ball should have went halfback dive to the left, which the hole was there, would have been a first down, but it was a read option called to the right, and Peyton Thorne kept the ball. Then he got tackled for a loss and got an earful by Hugh Freeze, left Jarquez Hunter confused on the play. And another issue I see with this team is you have Jarquez Hunter. You have Damari Alston. Looking at yesterday's game, 13 carries for Jarquez, 91 yards. Math says that is 7 yards a carry. In the entire fourth quarter, Jarquez Hunter did not get a single carry. I don't understand why, when you have a running back like Jarquez Hunter, why you stop using him. Even Damari Alston, who only had 4 carries in this game, but averaged 5.5 yards on those 4 carries, got 22 yards. and had explosive runs against the Georgia defense. Auburn ran the ball well, 160 yards against Georgia. Peyton Thorne even had 46 yards. But your best weapon in your run game, you decide to sideline and not utilize throughout the entire fourth quarter where you were trying to fight back and win a game. And I don't want to say Auburn was going to win this game anyways. But things could have gone differently, and this game would be at least closer than 31-13. Auburn left so many points off the board, and you kick a field goal, and when you probably could have gone for it on 4th and goal, I think that a lot of Auburn fans probably don't sit well with some of that. Auburn, something is systematically wrong with Auburn. I cannot overstate that enough, that something is wrong. I don't think Hugh Freeze is going to get fired. I don't think he should get fired yet. Auburn might go 3-9 this year, and I'm not going to sit in the camp of firing the head coach. The SEC got statistically better across the board. Vanderbilt is beating teams, just in general. Vanderbilt is beating teams. But I don't, and that's something I've been saying for a while now, because I look back at what we saw earlier in the year. Hugh Freeze is pushing his scheme onto a roster that's not built for this. This team is a power running team. Now, it can also run the RPO a little bit. KLS has been outstanding thus far this season, and I'm getting excited enough to think that I'm going to see the first time I've ever seen a Auburn wide receiver hit 1,000 receiving yards in the season. I've never seen that in my lifetime. The last time it happened was the year before I was born. Going forward, you have a bye week. And that's the lucky thing about Auburn right now. They have a bye week. They have 2 weeks to try to get this right. 2 weeks before you have to travel to Columbia, Missouri, and take on a top 25 team. Now, Missouri also lost yesterday. They got absolutely boat raced by Texas A&M. And the issue with watching, the issue with watching Vanderbilt beat Alabama, the issue with watching Texas A&M beat Missouri, and watching Kentucky beat Ole Miss last weekend, those 3 teams are all upcoming on Auburn's schedule. And Auburn refuses to find a way to establish their identities offensively. And they find ways to show off offensively. They have explosive plays. They have a top 6 explosive offense in the SEC, which is saying a lot, really. They have a good defense. The defense is giving you plenty of opportunities to win football games. You held Georgia's offense to under 400 yards, which something Alabama can't even say they were able to do. You didn't give Carson Beck down deep balls to throw. They had to dink and dunk their way down the field. Trevor Etienne had a decent enough game, but you had him locked down for most of the time. Looking down the line, what is up with this offense? And that Hugh Freeze isn't calling the right plays. You were scheming for an offense that can't run. You were using an offense that cannot run your scheme, and you refuse to use what this team can do. Jarquez Hunter should be getting 20 carries a game. Damari Alston should be getting about 10 carries a game. You shouldn't be trying to run this RPO scheme so often that it becomes a PO. I don't see running very much in these RPOs. A lot of the times, it's Peyton Thorne trying to make a pass down the field. Or it's Peyton Thorne trying to do something. Honestly, I do not think that Auburn lost this game because of Peyton Thorne. I don't think Peyton Thorne helps you win this game, but I don't think Peyton Thorne led to you losing this game. There were issues on the offensive line, too. The offensive line played terribly. Percy Lewis maybe had his worst game as a Tiger thus far. Maybe probably one of his worst games as a college football player thus far. That first drive, I saw Percy Lewis both come off the line too slow, and then a few plays later came off the line too fast for a false start. Giving up sacks and then giving up 5 yards is ridiculous for a guy who was an SEC honorable mention player last year. I don't understand. I'm going to try to get some of y'all's comments. And Tim Tomei Taylor has one right here. And I see Teresa. Hey, Teresa, how you doing? And hey, Jay Flowers. How is there so confusion with the helmet comms? That's what I don't understand the most about this. That's something that I always forget that that's a thing now. And then I think about it, and it just makes me so upset watching them play that they're still doing stuff like this. Up until the 15-second mark on the play clock, you can talk to the players. And I'm pretty sure that's right. 15 seconds is like you can talk to the players until 15 seconds, or at least until it's the plays get set. There is no way in the world Peyton Thorne would not have known that was supposed to be a dive play. I don't know how in the world he wouldn't have known it was a dive play, or at least what is going on in Peyton Thorne's head that he sees a dive run play get called and then he turns it into an RPO read option that he takes. And you look at that and it goes back to the quarterback conversation. And I don't think that Peyton Thorne is the worst quarterback on the roster. I think he is. I just think Auburn doesn't have a good quarterback room right now, or at least a non-proven quarterback room. But why is your fifth-year senior veteran quarterback who started in Power 4 football over the past 4 seasons, he's not able to call plays correctly? He's not able to understand plays, comprehend the plays, and he still goes out there the next drive? I'm not a football coach. I have never once coached a real-life football team. I've coached video game teams very well. I've won plenty of national championships on NCAA 14, so I think I can speak for all coaches here. If your players are not running the plays that you are calling, why are you putting them back on the field? If that's the issue at hand, why is he going back on the field? And again, I don't think Peyton Thorne lost Auburn this game. I actually think that over the past 2 weeks, Peyton Thorne has played decent enough football for Auburn to win. But you see things that, like the pick 6 last week, and you see the 4th and 1. Something is not there. That Peyton Thorne will never be a game-changing quarterback. But it's almost to the point where he's not even able to manage the game correctly. He's making the correct plays most of the times now. It feels like, at least. I watched Peyton Thorne play over the past couple of weeks, and I've been impressed with how he's looked. But then something happens in the second half. Something happens late in the game where he loses it. Something gets lost in translation. And it shifts somewhere else. As, again, someone who has been watching football my entire life, I can look back to 2004 when I first watched a football game in person. And this goes back to just being a teacher. If someone is not listening to you, you don't just reward them. If someone's not listening to you, you have to. I'll give Hugh Freeze credit. He did give him an earful for changing his play that would have worked. But you have a guy on your team in Hank Brown. And yes, Hank Brown had a very bad game against Arkansas that first half, 3 interceptions. But he's a redshirt freshman, and those issues you can fix over time, especially if you're a quarterback whisperer, or at least self-proclaimed quarterback whisperer. But you have a veteran quarterback who isn't comprehending your play calls, is changing your play, isn't running the play you called, and you put him back out there. Over these 2 weeks, you have this week of practice, you have the bye week, you can sit down and watch Alabama and Georgia and watch Missouri. I think Missouri has a game this weekend. I'm not too sure if they do or not. You look down the line. You start preparing for Missouri. What in the world do you do with a quarterback who isn't listening to you, isn't calling your plays correctly? I understand the film room where and I believe Hugh Freeze when he says this, Peyton Thorne understands what he's doing wrong. He can look at the plays and see maybe I should have gone to the X receiver, not the Y. I should go to the Z, not the H there. I understand that Peyton Thorne understands the game. But there's a difference now, but to me, that from what I was saying, as a guy who practices correctly and a guy who plays correctly, something there is not clicking. And Chris Cosby goes, I think Hugh Freeze RPO is mainly pass. I agree with this too. This is just a rant session. I've been ranting about Auburn football for the past 2 weeks on these live streams. So I can rant about this one too. The RPOs. This team does not run RPOs. At this point, you should either be running the ball or passing the ball. Those should be the plays. Run or pass. RPOs have been ran so incorrectly this year. Sometimes they've worked, but most of the times against good defenses, the RPO has not been a thing. And then when you put Peyton Thorne in those situations to make that decision, he makes the wrong ones. He tries to make a pass. They called RPOs. There was 2 times last week against Oklahoma where an RPO was called. And both times, Peyton Thorne pulled the ball and threw an incompletion that stopped the clock and really aided Oklahoma in getting enough time to go down the field and get the win that they got. The RPO is not working with this team, and I don't think it will because the talent around it isn't based around the RPO. This team was not recruited together to be an RPO team. I mean, Hugh Freeze doesn't. I don't even think Hugh Freeze wants it to be an RPO based team. The RPO is what he gave this team to work last year. It's not going to work this year. Scheme around your players, not around what you want to do. And that's as simple as that. This team should be running the ball 70% of the time. And then utilizing the receivers that you have. This wide receiver core is phenomenal. I mean, Keandre Lambert-Smith is going to go down to the legend in my book. Cam Coleman is going to go down to the legend whenever his career is over with at Auburn. Perry Thompson is going to develop into an all-time receiver for Auburn. I am so high on this receiver core, but I can understand that this year should not be about the receivers. You recruited them well. Yes, I love that the receiver core was brought in, but this team should be running the ball 70% of the time when they're on the field, especially when your running backs are averaging 5+ yards a carry, especially whenever your starting running back is averaging 7 yards a carry against Georgia's defense. Get rid of the PO and just run the run. Quote tweet that. Get rid of the PO and just run the run. It doesn't make much sense, but that's crazy. Jay Flowers, Dylan, am I crazy? But everyone says PT's a starter because he's been there 2 years and he knows what Coach Hugh Freeze wants. Hank got here about 5 months before PT. Well, the issue with the Hank conversation is not only did Hank Brown get here before PT did, before Thorne did, Hugh Freeze recruited Hank Brown when he was I want to say a sophomore in high school. So if he's a redshirt freshman now, he was a freshman last year, the redshirt last year. So that's been 2 years with him. And then you go 3 years where he has been recruited by Freeze, where he has been in Freeze sites, where he has been a wish list item. 3 years of that for Hugh Freeze. Was going to bring him to Liberty, came to Auburn, brought him to Auburn. And after a game, you're just going to give up on him. You're not thinking you can develop him, a guy who you were extremely high on, that you brought him. You told him to flip from Liberty to Auburn. And you have one bad game. One bad half, really. One bad half. And you take him out. And yeah, we bash Peyton Thorne for having his Cal game that he had. But there's a difference between making these mistakes as a fifth-year player in college and then making it in your second career start as a redshirt freshman. I don't understand that. It makes no sense to me that you're so quick to give up on a guy who you've been wanting to see for a while, that you're the dual threat ability of a guy who doesn't make the right decisions half the time is there. over these 2 weeks, there should be a conversation amongst the entire coaching staff looking at what worked best against a bad defense, might I add. That New Mexico game was really the best looking the offenses looked all year. Everything clicked. And yes, they played a bad defense against New Mexico. I am not going to fault that. That was a terrible defense. New Mexico is not a great team. But you look at that defense and you gotta look past it for a second. Look at the offense. The game was called well. The pass game, there was a while there for Hank Brown where he had a streak where he didn't throw incompletion for about 10 passes. You had the run game working. It was clicking. You had both Damari Alston and Jarquez Hunter were running the ball extremely well. You saw what this team should be looking like. You run the ball, you pass the ball, you don't rely on the quarterback run. And then something happened in the Arkansas game. Quarterback got flustered. Hank Brown's confidence, it felt like it dipped a little bit going to the Arkansas game. He was ready for the Arkansas game, but he made rookie mistakes. He made passes he shouldn't have made. And at halftime in that game, instead of letting your freshman guy who you've been recruiting for really 5 years, if you want to consider the transfer portal as like recruiting him out of leaving that. I don't think Hank Brown will leave the portal, or was even a threat for that. Just a quote here. You have a guy who you've been recruiting for 5 years, a guy who for 3 years you've wanted to develop, and you got him at Auburn. You gave him a year to be the fourth string quarterback. You gave him another year. He was the backup quarterback. And your first string guy doesn't work out well. You give him a chance. He looks well. He plays very well. Goes in his next start. Looks a little rough. Rookie mistakes. You take him out. And you put in a guy who makes the same mistakes over and over and over again. It's crazy to me. It is absolutely crazy to me. Tim and Tommy Taylor said, are they arguing over the plays in the helmet? They do a lot of arguing on the sideline. I don't think they wait for the headset to go off. They go to the sideline and just start going at it. That's what it looked like yesterday. Jay Flowers still has the Vandy hat on. I could not resist not wearing the Vandy hat. Anchor down, always. Always been a secret Vanderbilt fan in hiding, especially on days when they beat Alabama. Just so you know, it has been about 12 hours since Vanderbilt beat Alabama, and vibes are still high about that. I was actually more excited about Vanderbilt being Alabama than I was upset about Auburn losing to Georgia. And I think a lot of people can agree with that. I think when no matter if your team loses or not, when Bama loses, everyone wins. And that's awesome. Cam is a 5-star. He missed a block and ain't. He is leading the team in almost catches. Ryan Williams killing it at Bama. And the other guy that was number 1, Freeze, has said nothing to Cam. And the other guy that was number 1, Freeze, said nothing to Cam. I'm trying to understand that. But yeah, I at first watching that play, I remember seeing that play happen. Cam has moments where he makes drops. Cam's had a few drops this year. And, of course, I'm of the camp of you bring Cam Coleman in to make those catches. And it sucks whenever he's not making the catches that he should be making or whenever he takes himself out of the play. But it goes back to the whole Hank Brown and Peyton Thorne thing. I'm not okay with it per se, but I'm not annoyed as much as by it because his age. And Ryan Williams is just ridiculous. But from what I've seen at Alabama, I mean, it's a lot of, and it's really play calling at Alabama is not all that great. I think Ryan Williams I don't know if it's just I've not seen much of Bama this year, but I've only ever seen Ryan Williams' highlights from him running a streak route. So I don't know if it's like he's ridiculous, and I'll give him that. I'll give him credit for that. But he's running streak routes. But Cam Coleman, that block that didn't happen, I don't really want to say it should have been a block because I don't think Peyton Thorne ran the correct way for it to have been a correct move for him to make. Like, I want to say that Cam was here, Peyton Thorne was here, and he pointed forward at the corner that was to the left of Cam. And then instead of just running forward and kind of meeting Cam in the middle there so Cam could have got it, Thorne went horizontal and ran towards the sideline, which if I'm Cam Coleman, that would have confused the mess out of me. You know, you're pointing over here to go block the guy down the field, and then you just start running past me the other way. And now I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if that guy just moved. I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to put blame on Cam Coleman for that. It's really hard for me to do it because like watching that play happen live. I don't think in my head, and I feel like I don't feel like I'm a pretty smart guy, but whenever my quarterback is pointing this way, and like he's pointing that way, like I'm about to run that way, I need you to block that guy. He just turns completely to the left and runs sideways. And now you're sitting there. What do I do? What do you want me to do here? I'm not going to put blame on Cam Coleman for that block. I will give Cam more. I'll raise more cane around Cam Coleman for pushing himself out of the play on the back of the end zone there than I will for him missing that block. Because I don't think it was on him for that block at all. That was on Peyton Thorne just running everywhere but the correct way. Let's see. Jimmy Carter. Thank you, Mr. President. I think we are in good hands with the way those young guys are playing on defense. We need a difference maker at quarterback who isn't afraid and willing to make plays. Thing is, like, looking at the defense has played great. I think the defense has, again, I think everyone in the media world agrees with this. Auburn's defense has been good enough to win them all these games. Like, Auburn's defense has played well enough for Auburn to be 6-0 right now. At the bare minimum, Auburn's defense has played well enough for Auburn to be 5-1 and losing this game. DeMarcus Riddick has looked the part. Caleb Harris has been outstanding. Jalen Crawford has earned starting reps because he's looked the part every single time he's been on the field. Kinsley Foston has played well. There's not a lot of guys who, I mean, I look at like Kyan Lee's touchdown that he gave up, and that wasn't really his fault because that was just a freak accident play that happened, the one that went through the receiver's hands. The defense has looked well. Has looked really good. I'm going to say well. The defense looked really good. Offensively, I don't even think you need a difference maker at quarterback. Like, I don't even think you need a Cam Newton. I don't think you need a Jarrett Stidham. I don't even think you need a Bo Nix or like a Brandon Cox to win these games for Auburn. I think you would just need if you put 2016 Sean White on this offense, Auburn wins the Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Cal game. If you put 2016 Sean White on this offense, Auburn is 5-1. Agree with me or not? I don't think Auburn needs a X-factor quarterback to have won these games. Auburn just needs a mediocre quarterback to win those games. Auburn just needs a Sean White. Auburn just needs go to Jake Coker. You don't need a guy who can. You just need a guy who doesn't make the mistakes. And Sean White's biggest mistake was he just couldn't. He had off the field issues, and he got hurt too much. That was it with him. But on the field, Sean White didn't really play terribly. I don't think Sean White ever really lost Auburn football games. Those teams were just. The defense was terrible in 2016. Or they weren't terrible. They weren't all that great, though. But, yeah, I honestly, yeah, Sean White gives Auburn the 5 wins that he should have in the season. Let's see. Popular opinion, if Gus was here, Jarquez Hunter would have 800 yards, DeMar Ellison 400, Jeremiah Cobb 350. I agree. I mean, but I also don't think Gus and Hugh are all that different. This team would work with Gus because that's what Gus likes to use. Gus likes to run the ball a lot. Hugh Freeze is not really doesn't really love to run the ball that much. So yeah, I can agree, but also like Gus's issue is same thing as Hugh Freeze's issue, as I was saying earlier. Like Gus, if you couldn't run his scheme, you were going to lose football games because Gus had a way that Miles on did it. If he had a way of running his offense, and if you couldn't run his offense, you were just going to lose game. It goes back to like Jeremy Johnson and Sean that year that there was like all that confusion. Neither one of those two really understood didn't really run the spread concept very well. And that kind of goes back to 2016. I mean, Sean White works in this scheme. But yeah, I take it or leave it kind of thing. Peyton was never the guy, point blank, period. These mistakes are inexcusable and should not be tolerated at this point. I completely agree with that. Tim Toomey Taylor, I've never seen a Vanderbilt fan in real life, and I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, about 2 hours away. I mean, this is a little story time. It's kind of off topic. So 2022 SEC tournament for basketball. Me and Tar and a few of our buddies went to Tampa for that, and we bought tickets for the entire week. Like we were expecting to be there with Auburn a lot longer than we were. Auburn was a one and done team. And that with Jabari Smith, Walker Kessler, all those guys. But the first night that played, Vanderbilt played Georgia, and Georgia was terrible. But we all hate Georgia. And I wore my Vandy hat. I didn't think I wear an Auburn shirt. I wore just a normal t-shirt, but I wore my Vandy hat. And I was the loudest person in the arena watching Vanderbilt just drain threes on Georgia. And I think I was the only Vanderbilt supporter in the stands for that game. And that was awesome. I would love to go back and see if I actually ever got on TV for being the only Vanderbilt fan in attendance for that. I also got a chance to yell scoreboard at some of the Georgia band members because they were trying to throw shade at us. So that was hilarious. Gumps lose to Tennessee. Remember, I said it. I'll keep that in mind. Motivated and dedicated. Bama loses 3 games, no DBs or pass rush. I'm not mad about that. I think Bama was fraudulent from the get-go. Jay Flowers, give me Jarrett, and we are 6-0. I completely agree. And Jarrett kind of goes back to I think Jarrett Stidham, 2017 Jarrett Stidham was that difference maker at quarterback. Because that was what you were missing over the past couple of years at that point, was the guy who made those passes down the field. I mean, Sean White never had that much of an arm, I will say. And I'm kind of just going back and forth with my Sean White comparison now because, yeah, Jarrett Stidham had the arm, and he had Darius Slayton that they paired off very well. Will Hastings paired off very well with that team. And this is the best wide receiver core Auburn's had in this century, I want to say, or at least the most potential between the receiver core. But yeah, Jarrett Stidham definitely makes this a 6-0 team. I completely agree with that. Bo Nix, 2019 Bo Nix, I think makes this team 6-0. And I don't even think that was the best Bo Nix that was at Auburn. 2022 Bo Nix was the best at Auburn. Let's see. Auburn needs a ball distributor. Hank has that ability. I completely agree with that. Hank Brown has the best deep ball on the team. And I mean, I was listening to the War Report earlier, and I think Mike said this. The only issue I think that Hugh Freeze has with Hank Brown is the fact that the offensive line isn't good enough to support a non-mobile quarterback. That's the only thing I can think of as to why Hank Brown is not getting more looks on the offense, is the fact that they're not allowing him, he can't run the ball. He's not going to be able to break tackles like Peyton Thorne can. He's not going to be able to, run around outside the pocket for 20 extra yards and look down the field. And if it's not there, make that 10-yard run to the first down. I mean, I'll give Peyton Thorne the credit. He is a mobile guy. And just Hank Brown doesn't have that quite yet. Sean White lost the Clemson game in 2016, though. Yes, but that Clemson team was also really good. I will say that was I want to say that was the year that they made it to the national championship. I want to say that's true. 2016 Clemson, which someone knows this before I get to it. Let's see. Auburn lost 19-13. Jordan Hare and Clemson won the national championship that year. So like that, I'm not gonna give Sean White that Auburn probably could have won that game, but also like that Clemson team was really good. And I also want to see Sean White, 10 of 21, 47% completion percentage, 1 interception. Jeremy Johnson also got in 4 of 6, 38 yards, and had an interception. Sean White also had negative 2 yards rushing. Kind of good. How many sacks did he have though? That's what I'm. He got. I don't know. That might have been an O-line issue. 3, 4, 5, 5.5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 11.5 TFLs for Clemson, and 4 sacks. I don't know if I'm gonna put that on Sean White completely. That again, the Clemson team was very good. Jimmy Carter again. We could use a Chad Kelly or Nick Marshall, even a Ryan Mallett. We need someone that's a dog that a team could rally behind. I mean, had Auburn gone after Diego Pavia, that would be a thing. But like Peyton Thorne has that ability at times. Like I've seen Peyton Thorne put his like against Oklahoma. Like he had to start off the game. He had that in him. He just doesn't utilize it. Like Peyton Thorne could be a Ryan, like a Chad Kelly, or like a Bo Wallace type player. And I use Bo Wallace very loosely because he's a weirdo. But he just doesn't do it all the time. I don't know why. Teresa Payton got sacked a zillion times yesterday. The offensive line did play terribly. I talk about the quarterback situation need to be a conversation over the next 2 weeks. Left tackle needs to be a conversation for this coaching staff over the next 2 weeks. Percy Lewis had his worst game probably in his career. Tyler Johnson, Dylan Wade probably need to take over at that point if this is going to be an ongoing issue. Percy Lewis has not looked great this year. But the offensive line as a whole has kind of been a little funky at times. Lawrence Robinson Clemson won that championship that year. Yep. I think Sean Jackson should be in a lot. He is a bowling ball. I like Sean Jackson. It would really need to be situational for me to want to say he needs to get in a lot more. I would say, I mean, Oklahoma Wildcat Deshaun Jackson down the middle of in the A gap on the 1 yard line. I like Sean Jackson's chances of getting in the end zone over Sam Jackson. But I don't know if he should be getting a lot more carries. I still think Auburn should be. I'm more worried about Jarquez Hunter and Damari Alston not being in as much as they should. That's mostly my issue with this Auburn team right now, is the lack of utilizing the players that would win you football games. But looking down the line, I mean, Teresa, the sack comment was because you were saying Hank isn't mobile and Peyton is, but he still got sacked. Hank is tall and can throw over can throw over as they come at him. As soon, I guess as soon. Okay, yeah, okay. I'm reading it now. As soon as they come at him. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that comment. I think it's just mostly because I saw. I don't think I just haven't seen it enough. I guess is probably the issue with Hank Brown is I haven't seen him play enough because I don't think there's a lot of trust there with him to be in the game. But when Peyton Thorne breaks out of sacks a lot. Like Peyton Thorne got sacked 3 times on the stat sheet. Peyton Thorne could have gotten sacked at least 5, like not just 5, like 7 or 8 times. It felt like he was able to break through those after that game. But I think that's mostly the issue is just Peyton Thorne's able to break through those sacks a lot more. Off topic, but when Trent Dilfer gets fired, who do you think UAB should go after? Right now, my pick would be Travis Williams or the OC at UNLV if they want to bring some excitement. I do think Trent Dilfer is on his way out. He has done some very childish things. He might be back in high school next year. UAB be interesting because UAB should demand a lot more respect than they do right now, but Dilfer kind of ran that program into the ground over the past few years. But I do agree. I do like T. Will for that. That'd be awesome, especially to get him back in the state of Alabama. Honestly, that would probably do a lot of good recruiting for UAB if T. Will went to UAB as like the head coach. But would they go for, I don't know. I think T. Will's pretty happy in the SEC, even as the defensive coordinator. I don't know. I don't think T. Will would leave Arkansas. He would leave for a bigger defensive coordinator job or like a bigger head coaching job. Like he's going to get a head coaching job at like a Power 5 level before he goes anywhere else in like G5 level head coach. I think he'll get that nod before he goes G5. But UAB, I mean, looking at other coaches around, I'm trying to think of other. Honestly, like sorry, Teresa, but Jeff Traylor could be a UAB potential. I think it'd be a lateral move, but I don't think he would. I don't think he would take that job. He'd definitely go somewhere bigger than that. You'd be looking at people around Baylor, probably. Baylor might be firing a coach. I'm starting to think of just coaches in general who would leave for UAB, but yeah, I don't think T. Will leaves. Lawrence Robinson, more passes to running backs and bubble screens going forward. We saw Georgia do that a lot. They were just throwing like out routes to the receivers and just damaging the Auburn defense that way. Jeremiah Cobb should be getting the ball a lot more as a receiver. He definitely should. I don't think Jeremiah Cobb touches the field enough. I definitely don't think he touches the field enough. Jeremiah Cobb is an absolute weapon, and I hate that we only get to see him sometimes on offense and just as a return man. I definitely think if Jeremiah Cobb should be getting the ball, I want to say if like go back to the Oklahoma, like the New Mexico game, if Jarquez getting 20 carries and Damari is getting 10 carries, Jeremiah should be getting about 5. Or even as high as like 8. Like he should be up there in the carries. Like this should be a running back by committee, 3 guys going in and out, because all those guys can do different things extremely well. Jarquez more your all around back. Damari is your explosive back, and Jeremiah is your agile back. Like you can utilize all those guys and move this offense down the field like very well. Fun fact, I'm gonna go with this one. Harold Jordan was our 3rd string running back, and he transferred and was Peyton Thorne's 2nd string running back at Michigan State. I did know that actually. Harold Jordan, former pass droppee of the 21-14 loss to Georgia. I think it was 2020, 2021, one of those 2 years. And he also transferred out. I think he transferred out of Michigan State. I don't know if he ever transferred out of Michigan State and go somewhere else, but I know he stayed at Michigan State. He tried to leave for the NFL, and I think I don't know if he went to the combine or not, but I know he never got drafted. But yeah, I did know that actually. 2019, thank you, Lawrence Robinson. And Teresa's getting mad because I said Jeff Traylor might leave for UAB. Just a hunch. UAB is my 2nd favorite school in the state of Alabama. I kind of root for them a little bit. I just started a college football dynasty with them this morning, actually. But yeah, going forward, I mean, this is going to be a conversation we're going to have throughout the week about what Auburn needs to do in the bye week. We'll have a live stream next Sunday where we're just going to talk about what's going on around football. What can Auburn look for going forward? I meant to look and see if Missouri plays next weekend, but I forgot to do that, so I'm going to do that right now because that's going to be Auburn's next game. They play UMass next weekend at 11 a.m. That'll be, I guess, a fun one to watch. I guess they get a bye week too. But yeah, next week we'll just talk about Missouri football, what else is going on around college football in general, what Auburn can do going forward. And tomorrow, the Tuesday show, I'll be recording on Monday, but recording for the Tuesday show, we'll talk about Hugh Freeze's press conference tomorrow and going forward. Also giving my SEC power rankings as well. So going forward, and also talking about some Auburn recruiting news. Cale Ellis reclassified 2025. So talk about as well for the Tuesday show. Last comment, Jimmy Carter, if we can add Alford to Fegan / Eric Winters with Jalen Crawford and Kyan and Caleb Harris, I was thinking there will be nasty next year. Completely agree. Auburn's still recruiting well. I'll give as much as I've been talking about Hugh Freeze not scheming well for the team that he has. Recruiting has given me enough confidence going forward that I don't think you can fire Hugh Freeze after this year. Next year, if you're 2-4, conversation to be had. But right now, you're recruiting too well to kind of give up on this guy because you're about one flip away from owning 9 out of 10 of the top 10 players in the state of Alabama. So positives are there. There are a lot of positives about this team, but just something's not right mentally just on that team. They don't know how to win yet. That's one of the biggest issues with the team. They don't know how to win yet. But with that, I'm going to end it there. Thank you all for tuning in for this installment of the College Loop Podcast. And remember, we'll be back on Tuesday, talk about all the news we've missed, talking about Auburn basketball, talking about baseball and softball as well, because I think they've gotten some recruits. And, we're getting very close. We're 2 weeks away from fall ball. And, of course, I'm going to try to go to at least a few of the softball games as well, because Auburn softball, so fun to watch. And I love what the Malvos are doing over there on the Plains as they've gotten there. But don't forget, we'll also be doing SC Power Rankings as well. And I might surprise you with who my number one is. Just might. Just know it's not Alabama. Just saying. With that being said, thanks for watching some of the College Loop Podcast. And as always, don't forget to check us out everywhere on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works. Also, the College Loop. Buy the merch, College Loop hat, Field Loop t-shirt, all that, warreport.com. Check that out on the description below. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Leave your thoughts on what Auburn could have done better against Georgia. And, of course, all that being said, War Eagle.